Holy crap. It's probably the 5th biggest waterfall in the state of Indiana right there. Look at that, baby. Oh yeah. What's up, y'all? What I'm gonna do for you in this video is this is gonna be the start of a little video series that I'm gonna try to put together. And what the video series is gonna be about is my transition to using a frameless backpack for backpacking. Yes, I am taking that dive into the sewers of ultralight where I am going to use a frameless backpack for some backpack trips and see how it works out. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that most of my backpacks are framed backpacks, which means they have some sort of sheet or wire frame that allows you to carry the weight, carry more weight comfortably, and transfers weight to the hip belt to make it a more comfortable experience. But I've decided to take a dive with a frameless backpack. The frameless backpack I have featured for you today is a YAR.gear backpack. I think this is like the YAR.gear Mountain Drifter 38 liter backpack. And if you go to their website, there might be a few for sale. But this really isn't going to be a review of this backpack. This just happened to be the one that I got. And the reason I got this one, because it had pretty much all of the features that I liked on a frameless backpack. It had these sort of like vest harness style straps with front pockets for carrying water bottles or whatever. It had all the cords I wanted, side compression cords, this sort of front bungee cord here. It had a bottom pocket, so I could try that out, see if I like that feature. And there's really nothing on the inside. There isn't even like a water bladder pocket. It's just a big empty cavity on the inside. But it had just a few features off the shelf that I really liked. And I also like this sort of green and red color scheme too. I like that as well. So it had a number of features that I really liked. And also it comes with this hip belt, and I'll be able to maybe replace it with any sort of hip belt that I like. And I'm going to do that in this video where I go for a hike later. So this is sort of going to be the first video in my series of transitioning to frameless. We're going to see what it's like, how it works out, and this YAR.gear Mountain Drifter is going to be my test product that had basically all the basics that I wanted to try out in a frameless pack. So I'm excited to do this, and I hope you're excited as me, but I know you're probably not as excited as me because you're just watching this video for whatever reason. I don't know why you're watching this video. Thanks for watching though, appreciate it. But anyways, let's get going in the video to the next scene. Well, I am ready to roll here on this day hike to test out this YAR.gear pack, frameless pack, because I wanted to test it out and see what it'd like to be carry a frameless pack for at least a good half days of hiking. I'm going to go on and think about 10 to 11 mile hike here, and I've got it loaded up to over 20 pounds, probably closer to 25 pounds if I'm splitting hairs. And I just kind of loaded it to simulate what a loadout would be. And so there's just a bunch of random stuff in there. I threw like a down jacket, a fleece, and then I have like bags of flour and sugar in there to add a little weight. And then I got the side pockets all loaded up with some food and some water and some bug spray. Got my rain gear on the outside, and then if I turn it around, you'll see I've got the shoulder straps loaded up with water here, and these aren't exactly smart water, they're just store brand. But the 700 and how many milliliters is that? I can't really read it. 700, yeah, I got 700 milliliter in each shoulder pocket. You could fit the liter smart wires, but those go up pretty high and they might hit you in the face. So I like these little 700 ones instead in a shoulder strap pocket. And then with the waist belt, like a lot of frameless packs, it just sort of comes with a 1-inch waist belt here that is really meant for stabilization and not really meant for load bearing. But I do have these sort of waist straps, like a clip on. So I'm probably going to do both. I'm probably going to use these larger waist straps for a bit and see how that feels, and then also use the 1-inch waist strap, which really isn't going to transfer weight. It's just going to be stabilization. But when I did try this on in my residence with these thicker waist straps, it did actually transfer some weight. So yeah, I've got this loaded up to try to simulate what it would be like on you know, like a weekend trip, and overnighter, and we'll see how this all works out at the end of the day. Here you go, folks. This is about as canyony, as good of a canyon as you're gonna get in Indiana. Look at that. Look at that sheer rock face. Well, there's some nicer ones, Clifty Falls and Turkey Run and stuff, but this sort of sheer rock face dealio in a stream bed isn't something that's all that you see too often around here. Enjoy it while you can. So I am about halfway through my hike, and I just wanted to show the hip belt I used and what it's been like so far. And I have this sort of thicker hip belt. It's actually WANDRD hip belt for a 1-bag travel pack, a carry-on travel pack that I just got off Amazon. And I used it to reinforce another backpack I have in the hip belt area, but I just decided to throw it on this one because I have the hip belt laying around, and it worked pretty well, actually. I think it works just about as good as any thicker, wider hip belt is going to work for a pack like this, because on a pack like this, it's just not designed to transfer weight to the hips very well. The waist belt is usually used for stabilization and not used for weight transfer, but I was able to at least take some weight off my shoulders. I will say though, however, because this is a frameless pack, I did feel quite a bit of pressure on my shoulders here with these shoulder straps. So that is still something that's going on, and I guess that's to be expected, considering it is a frameless pack. There is going to be quite a bit of weight transfer onto the shoulders, much more so than the hips. So that's something that I guess I expected, but I guess I was a little surprised that it didn't transfer weight to the hips as much as I would have hoped with this thicker belt. And as for the back panel, you can definitely see some back sweat going on there. I am using a sleeping pad that has like the little hills, the little bumps, as a makeshift frame here, which is one of the recommended things to do with the frameless pack. And that does provide a little bit of ventilation, but it's still just this X-Pack fabric against my back, so it's going to get pretty hot in there, even if you do have a sleeping pad that has ridges or little bumps to maybe allow a little bit of airflow. But it does help. It does add a lot more structure than I expected, so that's a nice little feature. What I'm going to do for the rest of this trip is I'm going to throw this little 1-inch thick waist belt on here for the rest and see how that transfers weight. And we'll see how that goes. And I imagine I'm probably going to feel it in my shoulders quite a bit more once I throw on this smaller belt. And I'm going to hike with it for probably another hour and a half. I've done 2 hours with the thicker belt, but I'm going to transfer to the 1-inch belt. And we'll see how that ends up feeling. I imagine I'm going to feel a lot more in my shoulders, and I'm not going to feel much weight transfer to my hips. But we'll see, and I'll get back to you when I'm done hiking with this thinner belt. Hello, I'm going to do one of those annoying walk and record videos. Never tried this before, and it is kind of annoying. I feel like I'm going to trip and fall. But anyways, I've been hiking for about an hour with the 1-inch hip belt here. And I just want to talk about the differences I feel. And I can tell you, in my shoulders, I don't really feel a lot. I feel like there isn't as much pressure, increased pressure on my shoulders as I expected. And I think that has something to do with losing some weight in terms of water and food weight to balance out the load a little bit more. Now, one thing that is noticeable is if I take the 1-inch hip belt and I just unclip it and just have no weight at all, yeah, I can definitely feel an increased load in my shoulders and a decreased stability. And the other thing I like about, one of the other reasons I got this pack is sort of the vest style, the running style straps that you have here. And the nice part about these straps is it distributes the weight across your chest and your shoulders and you know, your torso a bit more than regular straps, which are thinner. They might be thicker in terms of thickness, but they're going to be thinner in terms of width. And so there's really a better weight distribution. Unfortunately, these bottles here, you know, these round bottles, they're not similar to smart water bottles. They tend to like sort of round out or barrel out the pocket or the strap here. And so it causes the weight to maybe center a little bit more in the strap instead of distribute it all the way to the ends. And if I take out one of these water bottles, I can just definitely feel a difference because I just feel like the weight is more evenly distributed now all the way to the edges of the strap, where over here I feel sort of pressure, more of a pressure towards the middle of the strap, and then the ends of the strap aren't really distributing the weight, pulling their load, so to speak. So that's one thing to take note of with these sort of vest style straps, is that the round bottles kind of cause them to barrel out, and it's not distributing the weight as well as I'd like. And that's probably gonna happen with any vest style strap. So I might get some of those like fancy running flasks in the future and see if that helps keep the weight more well distributed in the strap. But I do like these vest straps. It's another reason I got this pack, is because of these vest straps, just to try them out and distribute the weight a little bit more across my torso, and then also try out with water bottles on the front of the strap and see how that works. And overall, I do like it so far. But that's enough of me talking. So let's just, why don't we just take a look here at our nice scenery. There you go, folks. The Midwest Tunnel of Green. Sorry for all you mountain files and in view of files. You're not going to get much of that out here. It's going to be a lot of the old Tunnel of Green. But, you know, it's good enough for me. I can deal with it, especially on a nice kind of chilly summer day. For, yeah, 70s. It's 70s. That's as chilly as it gets. Okay. Hello again. I just wanted to wrap up this video with the final discussion, some concluding thoughts about using this frameless pack on my sort of test day hike and what it was like to hike with it for a medium length day. Shorter than I would usually spend on the trail if I was backpacking, but it gave me enough an idea about what I was getting into. And overall, I started the day with about 25 pounds, and then I ended the day with probably closer to 20 pounds. So as the day went on, it got a little bit easier. I could definitely feel a little bit of a reduction in the pressure on my shoulders and such. 25 pounds is probably the max you're going to want to carry in here. I hear some people might take up to 30 in their frameless packs, and that seems like quite a bit. I could definitely feel it with 25 pounds, and as the day went on and I got closer to 20 pounds total weight, it felt like there was a little less pressure. I had a little bit more spring in my step, so I could definitely feel the difference there. Now, as for the waist belt, I started with the thicker waist belt. I ended with the 1-inch waist belt, and this did not put nearly as much pressure and weight on my shoulders as I thought it would. I thought when I transitioned to the thinner hip belt, I would be able to really feel it in my shoulders, but that wasn't really the case. I could really feel it though when I would loosen the hip belt or when I would unclip it, I could definitely feel the more pressure in my shoulders. I could feel the pack a little bit further away from my back, and I could feel a little bit of sway on uphills and downhills. So I'm kind of perplexed as to why people would want to remove even just a minimal hip belt like this if they're going for multi-days on a backpack, because I've seen some people remove the hip belt or cut it off because they don't like it on a frameless pack. It doesn't make sense to me because this just adds a little bit of versatility, a touch more comfort for an ounce and a half of weight or whatever. So I think that's definitely something I would keep on there. And then the thicker hip belt, as I mentioned earlier in the video, this thing was great to transfer a little bit more weight to my hips. And luckily, this pack has like this loop here that the hip belt attaches to. So I'm able to clip this out and clip this one right back in. So that's a nice feature. So I can, if this breaks or I lose it or whatever, I can get a replacement hip belt. Some packs might have it sewn in, or they might have some sort of fancy, unique attachment for the hip belt. Well, this really doesn't, and it allows me some versatility if for some reason I don't like this particular hip belt it came with. Now it's the shoulder straps. I loved how they distributed weight, and so that was a great feature. When you don't have a weight-bearing hip belt, these shoulder straps really do carry most of that weight for you. One thing, as I mentioned, is the barreling that kind of happens, the rounding out of the shoulder straps. And I don't know if you can see it from a couple different angles, but you can see maybe how it's round. These bottles are causing the shoulder straps to sort of round out and not sit flat. Let me take this out, and so now you can sit flat with these shoulder straps. And without the bottle in there, it's going to distribute the weight more evenly, and I can feel it kind of distributing all the way out to the edges. With the bottle in here, the weight's towards the center a little bit because it's causing this shoulder strap to round out and not evenly distribute the weight across the whole surface area. So that's something I wasn't crazy about. And I might get one of those soft flasks that you see like trail runners use on their vests. I might get one of those and use it for the water bottles instead of these little smart water imitations, 700 milliliter smart water imitations. But overall, I am happy with this experience, and I think I'm going to continue to use this pack for something like overnighters, weekend trips, maybe warm weather multi-day trips. I'm not sure I could fit a lot of food and a lot of warm weather gear in here. There just isn't enough volume, and as the weight goes up with that additional food and gear, it's going to be way less comfortable to carry. So we'll see what I end up using for. I do have a trip coming up. I do have a trip to Baxter State Park for about, I think, 4 days, 3 nights. So that will be an opportunity to test this out for a multi-day trip. I hope I can fit everything in here. And if I do, that's going to be part 2 of this series. Part 2 is going to be a little multi-day trip to Baxter State Park. But we'll see with my transition to frameless if I'm able to fit everything for that trip in there. We'll see. But thanks for watching and bearing along as I do this ad hoc transition to frameless backpack video series. Like, subscribe, comment if you have any questions. Appreciate your viewership. So have a nice day, folks. I'll see you later.